Welcome to Pulse of Culture. I'm Katarzyna Bonda. With legions of devoted fans, over 40 written books and skyrocket sales, Kasia Bonda is the queen of the Polish crime story writing. Kasia, thank you so much for finding the time to speak to us. So, what's a recipe for Kasia Bonda crime story?
No cóż, przepis jest, myślę, że uniwersalny, czyli
I think the recipe is universal. Research is key. It forms the foundation of any crime story. That means reading case files, studying documents, talking to police officers, visiting locations,
tam dokumenty, gdzie rozmawiam z policjantami, gdzie badam
even traveling to specific places to find the right streets and settings. If a foreign reader picks up my book, they get to explore Poland a little because I set my stories in real places.
może zwiedzać Polskę. Natomiast to, co jest drugim takim elementem, którym
But the second crucial element, in my opinion, is making sure that emotions are running high.
były na takiej bardzo wysokiej amplitudzie.
Crime fiction is meant to entertain, to take readers on an adventure.
I że czytelnik ma się doskonale bawić. Ma przeżyć przygodę, zapraszać.
I lead them into the cave, into the darkness, and then bring them back into the light. Because in all my books, there's always a happy ending.
W każdej mojej książce jest
The culprit is revealed and usually punished.
zostaje ujawniony i najczęściej ukarany.
Your books often show big distinctions between the rich, the nouveau-riche, the Polish aristocracy and the poor in Poland. Is this a topic that's really close to your heart?
Myślę,
że w ogóle kryminał eksploruje przestrzeń.
I think crime fiction by nature explores inequalities. Whether social, economic, emotional, mental, psychological.
Emocjonalnej, mentalnej. Ja myślę, że to tworzy ten kontrast, w który ja wchodzę jako
That contrast is what I step into as an observer, watching events that disrupt the balance. Because crime stories aren't just about murder, they're about secrets. Pick up my book means uncovering those secrets. I hope readers peek behind the curtain and see how things really are.
I sprawdzić, jak to wygląda.
Elements in my book, satire, irony, social critique, serve as a mirror and even an educational tool, showing how things change.
Ja piszę już książki 20 lat.
I've been writing for 20 years, and Poland's crime fiction scene has evolved tremendously. There were trends, shifts in style.
Jakby dostosowuje się nie tyle do czytelnika, co do rzeczywistości, której my
In the past, crime novels were dismissed as a lesser genre. In contrast, Anglo-Saxon writers always focused on plot.
U nas w Polsce kiedyś kryminał był bardzo niedocenionym gatunkiem.
In Poland, we used to treat crime fiction as a mere reflection of reality, like a mirror where readers can see themselves. Polish crime fiction reflects how we are, how we love our food, our history. Many of my books touch on serious historical issues, even controversial ones. At its core, the genre is simple. Someone dies, a detective investigates, and we follow their journey, like warriors seeking justice.
Kasia, in your books, there is always huge empathy with the victims, especially with female victims. But what about the antagonists? Do you have any understanding of the darkness in their hearts?
Znaczy, nie nazwałabym tego empatią czy współczuciem.
I wouldn't call it empathy or sympathy. But having worked as a journalist, having read countless case files, I'm rarely shocked. To write convincingly, I have to step into the mind of the perpetrator, see things from their perspective.
Natomiast, żeby napisać książkę,
That's always fascinating, because it helps me understand their motives.
w jakimś stopniu opisywać to z perspektywy tej postaci.
And more often than not, it comes down to weak, and more often than not, it comes down to weakness, not strength. Not some supernatural psychopathic power, but simple human frailty. The more I write, the clearer it becomes. Criminal behavior can be broken down, analyzed. Profiler psychologists do this all the time. It becomes second nature.
Na przykład teraz napisałam taką książkę, nazywa się w Polsce Kolekcjoner lalek i
When I wrote The Doll Collector, certain passages were incredibly hard because I had to force myself to see the world in a cold, detached way.
dokonuje różnego rodzaju
Without emotion. That was exhausting.
absolutnie To było dla mnie mocno obciążające.
So you're a devoted mother, a single mother to your daughter Nina. How is that? Is that helping at all, or is that in any way hindering your creative process?
Są takie sytuacje i są takie książki, które wpływają i rzucają mi się na głowę.
Oh, both. Some books get under my skin, and I start imagining worst-case scenarios, just because I wrote about them. But then I stop myself.
Takie rzeczy napisałam.
Most of these things never happen.
Że rzeczywiście głowa mi puchnie i wydaje mi się,
That paranoia
że to się
is just being a mom.
Wtedy mówię, zatrzymaj się, stop. Nina jest 18-letnia.
But now that my daughter Nina is 18, she actually helps me. I consult her on themes. She brings fresh ideas from the world. I've been writing since she was born. She's never known me as anything else.
Mnóstwo paliwa. To jest niesamowite, ja się tego nie spodziewałam, bo ja piszę odkąd...
In fact, my first book was published the year she was born. Over the years, balancing writing and motherhood has changed.
To było trudne, bo masz małe dziecko, musisz jednocześnie pisać, a praca pisarza każdego...
In the beginning, it was tough, caring for a child while needing complete solitude to write.
Jest z innej jakby generacji, odmładza mi postaci.
But now she revitalizes my work, keeps my characters young.
Koleżanki, jej świat. I uważam, że to jest
That's why I created a new series with a young protagonist. It's inspired by observing her and her friends. I try not to burden her with my fears or the darkness of my job, though.
Który się łączy z tą moją zawodową pracą.
You have a unique brand on the Polish crime writing market as somebody who really supports other fellow writers. How do you feel about that?
Bardzo dziękuję. To jest wspaniałe i cieszę się.
That's incredibly kind. Thank you. But honestly, I received a lot of support from more experienced writers when I was starting out.
Którzy byli przede mną.
That's why I set up a writing school to help new authors who aren't always young, by the way. Writing can begin at any age. The hardest part is getting that first book out. Once you do, you find your own way.
Książki czytam.
I also endorse books by fellow authors, ones I respect and enjoy. Sometimes I read a book and think, wow, I wish I'd come up with that. That's a great feeling, even if it makes my teeth clench with envy.
Ja na to nie wpadłam i jak ja zaczynałam, było nas 10, te 20 lat temu.
When I started 20 years ago, there were only 10 of us writing crime fiction in Poland.
Festiwal kryminału we Wrocławiu.
We had to create our own festival because no one took us seriously. That festival, the International Crime Festival in Wrocław, is huge now. But back then, nothing. Now 600, 700 crime novels come out every year in Poland. I can't even keep up with all the new names. Many of today's authors were once my students, and now they're my competition. And that's wonderful. Seeing them succeed makes me proud. I believe that once you've been in the industry long enough, you should give back. Why should newcomers struggle with doors we've already opened? Talent can't be taught, but craft can. If I can provide tools that make someone's path smoother, I'm happy to do so. I even get energy back from it.
Taką energię zwrotną.
And finally, what advice would you give to that young Kasia Bonda who left the provincial town of Hajnówka, came to Warsaw to study journalism? What advice would you give to your former self?
Powiedziałabym jej, nie bój się, rób.
I tell her, don't be afraid, just do it. Every hesitation, every moment of doubt came from fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism. I procrastinated, I second-guessed myself, and sometimes I even gave up. Now, nearing 50, I know that the moment you start doing something, you figure it out along the way. If I had taken certain chances sooner, I wouldn't necessarily have been more successful, but I would have felt at home in this world much earlier. It took me years to call myself a writer.
Nawet miałam ten sukces komercyjny.
Even after multiple books and commercial success, I'd say, I write books, but never, I'm a writer. That's common among people in creative fields. Writing is paradoxical. Deeply introverted while you're working, but then you have to go out and defend your work.
Bardzo często trzymałam na przykład książki w szufladzie,
I used to keep manuscripts in drawers, afraid of judgment.
po prostu bałam się tej oceny, tej krytyki.
But now I know. Just do it. Fear is the only real obstacle.
Kasiu, bardzo Ci dziękuję za ten wywiad.
Dziękuję.
Thank you so much. And that was Pulse of Culture. I'm Katarzyna Bonda, and I was here in Warsaw with Kasia Bonda, the queen of Polish crime writing.